I'm meteorologist Erika Page, and if you're like me, you step out to your front yard or your backyard, all of a sudden everything is really starting to look crispy. So it's no surprise probably to you that some of our areas here across northeast Ohio are starting to slip into that abnormally dry condition. We have these drought monitors that basically take observations on Tuesday. We get updates then on Thursday to see what the status is of our ground moisture. And it's important because if you have plants outside, you of course want to keep them thriving as long as possible. And when you have stretches of heat like what we've been dealing with, well, it just makes that moisture in the soil evaporate that much quicker. And so it's no surprise probably to many of us that we're starting to see these abnormally dry conditions settle in. This is not drought officially. Officially, to be in drought, you'd need moderate drought, but this is kind of that precursor that says, hey, we're getting to that point where things are really starting to dry out at a very fast rate. So far, if you look at the rainfall for Cleveland specifically, you'd kind of say, okay, we're not in a bad spot. But remember, that's just the rain that's fallen at Cleveland Hopkins, where we keep our official observations. For the rest of us, this is probably more so the story we've been dealing with rainfall totals so far for the month only at about half of an inch or so. And so in a lot of places, this is putting our deficit over 2 inches of rain, and in some spots over 2.5 inches of rain. Mansfield, you're 2.65 inches behind where we should be just for the month of June. That doesn't include where we've sat for the rest of the year. So again, Cleveland's may look a little different than the rest of us just because we've had some showers and storms rolling over the airport, but a lot of us are at the point where we may have to start adding in some of the watering. So if that's you, these are some things to remember, especially when we get into these hotter stretches. It is coolest in the morning, and that is really the best time to water, because the ground is able to soak in as much of that moisture and really help to reach that root system that's in those plants. And that helps it to stay a little bit more thriving, especially when we're dealing with temperatures into the 90s. But of course, it's not always convenient. If you can't water in the morning, best to do it later in the evening once the sun has gone down. You really want to avoid watering when the sun is up because you're putting moisture out there, but if it's hot outside, all that moisture is just going to evaporate before the water can really get to the root system of the plant. And make sure you're being consistent. That is a key. You can't really necessarily make up for missing a day here or there. So if you have plants or anything outside that needs to be watered, make sure you set it up on a very consistent schedule. In terms of long-term outlooks, it's okay for us here across northeast Ohio. You'll notice the western part of the state starting to get into some signals that we may see a bit more activity rolling through. But as we've seen, it's either feast or famine when you get some of these showers and storms to bubble up. So it is something we will have to watch over the coming days, and certainly for our eastern communities where we're already starting to see those abnormally dry conditions settle in.